Good evening. Tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live stream video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary-Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we've adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream on this of this hearing on oakville.ca, and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The phone number is also posted on the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you call in, staff will ask for your name and the number of you wish to address and your telephone number. Further instructions will be provided for you to call back to join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls for interested parties, you have to press *6 to unmute yourself. The applicant or agent will then be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for each presentation. You will need to state your full name and address for the record, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations will also state their full name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for their presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. Then the applicant and agent will then have provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in the staff report, particularly with proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity to advise us. This matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of the discussion. Any person desiring a notice of the decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary-Treasurer. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consent applications to the applicant, agent, and any other person who has filed a written request for such notice. The last day to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. Only the applicant, specified persons, or public bodies may appeal the committee's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In November of 2022, Bill 23 legislation, the More Homes Built Faster Act, amended the Planning Act to remove appeal rights for members of the public. If no appeal is received within the prescribed timeframe, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to, respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and others people participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. We have one regret this evening. Mr. Tulowski is not with us. Any declarations of peculiar interests? I see none. Thank you. We have requests for deferrals or withdrawals, Madam Secretary-Treasurer. If anyone is in the hearing and is wishing to defer an application or request a withdrawal, please raise your hand and the Secretary-Treasurer will invite you to the panel to speak.
Madam Chair, I see Ms. Della McPhee, planner, wants to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff, with respect to application number CAVA 164/2023 regarding 2423 Sylvia Drive, would like to request a deferral. That application, staff recommends that the application be deferred as additional information concerning the zoning bylaw has been brought to our attention that warrants further consideration.
Okay. And in that regard, since staff is requesting the deferral, then the deferral fee would be waived.
Yes,
Madam
that is my
Secretary
understanding.
Treasurer? Okay, very well. Where is the agent? Have you notified the agent of this application thus far, or no?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have had email correspondence with Igor Lukak, who is the agent representing the owner. I advised him that we would be requesting a deferral of the matter. And I think he may still be in attendance. I suggested that it's the will of the committee whether the matter be deferred or not.
Very well. If Mr. Luca is in the panel, would you please raise your hand so we can invite you to speak? I do still need to hear from you with respect to the request for a deferral. I know staff is requesting it, but you have to be amenable to it. Hello, Mr. Luca, go ahead.
Hiya. Do we know the basis for the request? We just received it today at 5, I believe.
Staff would care to comment?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. The matter concerns our analysis of the zoning bylaw as it pertains to the existing context. And we are of the opinion that additional time is necessary to provide appropriate advice and rationale for our recommendation.
Okay. So is it on us to accept or decline the request?
It's not about accepting or declining. The committee will rule for the deferral, but you have to, you just have to be aware and the fact is that if we do accept the deferral, then you will not have to pay the deferral fee. You'll just have to reschedule and work with staff with respect to the comments that they provide at that time.
Okay, I mean, yeah, there's no influence on our part. Okay.
Yeah. If you don't want and you just want to proceed, then the risk is that the committee hears the application and may deny it or accept it. That's the whole, I guess. Did you want to say anything, Mr. Hardcastle?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I thought I saw you speaking. Okay, so Mr. Luca, we will just take the matter into committee now. Is there a discussion on the request for a deferral? Okay, all those in support of a deferral in light of planning request? Okay, very well, then the deferral will pass and has been approved. Mr. Luca, you will see the Secretary Treasurer once things have been ironed out, and she'll get you back on the nearest agenda.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. So is there anyone else that's seeking a deferral at this time, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I don't see anybody else requesting deferral.
If there's no one else who's waiting to request a deferral, we will take the matter into committee and start the first application. Okay, the first application on our agenda tonight is CAV 162 of 2023, 87 Mayfield Drive. Again, it's CAV 162 of 2023 at 87 Mayfield Drive. I have a Mr. Lucas Cocomello as the agent. If you are in attendance, please raise your hand and the Secretary Treasurer will allow you We'll invite you to speak.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can right now.
Perfect. Okay, my name is Lucas Cocabello from Chillico. Address is 340 Church Street, Oakville. So we're here representing the homeowner of 87 Mayfield, and we're proposing a new two-story dwelling with integral garage. We are requesting 4 variances for this project. The 4 variances are as follows. Variance 1 is maximum total floor area for an attached private garage. 45 square meters is what is permitted through the bylaw. We're requesting 49.74. The next variance is maximum allowable projection of an attached private garage. Bylaw notes we're allowed 1.5 meters. We're requesting 8.38 meters for the below grade portion of the garage. The third variance is the maximum floor area ratio. Bylaw allows 41%. We're requesting 41.34%. And the last variance regarding the front yard setback. Bylaw notes that we are allowed 10.52 meters. And we're requesting 8.95 to the front covered porch and 2.26 for the below grade portion of private garage. We have reviewed the planning's comments pertaining to this project, and they've noted that they don't necessarily have concerns on this project, but do note that there are 2 conditions that they request to be added for this project. The conditions being that we follow, that the drawings are in accordance to the October 2023 drawing set that we have provided for the site plan and drawing elevations, and that building permit be issued within 2 years of the, I guess, issued decision. Based on that, we feel that the application is minor in nature, and if you guys have any questions or concerns, please let me know and I'll do my best to answer.
Very well, thank you. Committee members, are you, do you have any questions of Mr. Cocamelo at this time, or items of clarification? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quite frankly, I'm not sure whether this, well, I think this is more a question for staff, but I'm gonna direct it first to Mr. Cocamelo. Having prepared the drawings, I'm looking at, I'm trying to understand a little bit around the garage and the garage GFA. I'm looking at the drawings here, and I'm seeing that the basement garage area is 180 square meters alone. That's not inclusive of the garage area that's on the main floor, which presumably is the 49 square meters. I'm trying to understand how come we're not looking at a more significant garage floor area or garage floor area variance.
So through you, Madam Chair, we had spoken to the zoning examiner and how the bylaw interprets the actual private garage portion, and the bylaw looks at strictly the private garage portion that's above grade. Based on our client's request, they had noted that they would prefer to have a private garage below grade, and in doing so, we have to basically take over a portion of the garage that's within the actual dwelling, and then the extension portion that's under the immediate driveway. So in terms of, to further answer your question, it's more of how the bylaw interprets the private garage and where it takes its area in terms of it being above grade, not below grade.
Does that answer your question,
It does,
Mr.
but
Hardcastle?
it does, Madam Chair, but it begs another question. Is that space then included in
The GFA.
the GFA or the residential floor area?
Yes, that's a good question. That's on my mind as well. Mr. Musayev, do you want to comment on that?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I can comment on that. It is my understanding that the residential floor area is the way the bylaw interprets the residential floor area is also the above grade habitable area. So it's residential floor area in this case. It's only 0.34% increase because it's only taken into account the above grade. That is my understanding.
So finished basements do not count as the GFA then? It's not considered habitable spaces?
It is from what I understand, it's the above ground part only.
Okay. Anything further? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey. Sorry.
Maybe I just need some clarification here. I was
Go
always
ahead.
under the, always under the impression that when we're talking about residential floor area, we're not including the square footage or meters of the garage. We're just including the residential part of the habitable area inside the house. I don't know if planner just said that the garage might be included in that. I got a little bit confused there. You can clarify that maybe?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the garage floor area is not is separate from the residential floor area. So you are correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Hardcastle, you had your hand up again.
Would this site be subject to the site grading review? I'm sorry, I've lost track of what what the town is calling it these days. The site plan grading. I'm a little concerned. I've got some reservations and concerns around the amount of this site that is hardscaped. Part of it's coming from the garage, and part of it's coming from a very intensive backyard program that appears to be largely hardscape. So I'm wondering whether there is a more robust process to evaluate the impacts of this site from a grading and drainage perspective.
Through you, Madam Chair, our development engineering staff did take a look at this application, and they have noted, as noted in my comments as well, that a site grading and drainage will be review of the site's grading and drainage will be required as part of the development engineering site plan process, as this property is within 120 meters of a water course.
Okay.
Sorry, could I do a follow-up on that, please, Madam Chair? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Would they have done any degree of review at this stage, given any indications to you of significant concerns or issues with this?
Through you, Madam Chair, I am not sure what level of review was done by engineering staff for this application. So I am sorry, I won't be able to comment on that.
Okay, maybe I can ask another follow-up question, piggybacking on Mr. Hardcastle. What recourse, if any, if we approve this application today, that upon completing their evaluation and things do not conform to what is permissible, do we have in terms of retracting?
Through you, Madam Chair, the building permit will be issued only if the site grading and drainage is acceptable to development engineering, as they will be reviewing it through the development engineering site plan process. So a building permit will be based off of that.
No, I know that the building permit will be based off of that. I'm just saying that we will have already passed the variance, and okay, it doesn't matter. It's fine. Mr. Cocomello, do you have something further to say? I see your hand up.
Yes, so I'd like to make a note with regards to development engineering through that process. When they go ahead and review this project as a whole, in terms of the additional, because we do recognize that there is an extensive hardscape plan that's being imposed on this lot. They will know, and they will have will require us to go ahead and take further measures in terms of proper site drainage to make sure that we're not imposing any, I guess, let's say, rainwater onto adjacent lands, or any additional water that would have to go into the site servicing. We have been in contact with a grading engineer, and they had noted that we would have to heavily consider imposing infiltration galleries into this property to retain the additional rainwater within this property based on what we're proposing. So once we get to the stage where we'll have to apply for the DESP permits, the town's engineers will go and let us know if what we have provided at that stage is adequate, or if they would want any additional information to further clarify our position with this project.
Does this answer all your questions, Mr. Hardcastle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes.
Mr. Dickey,
Yes, thank you.
you're okay?
Yep.
All right. So if there are no further questions or items of clarification, has anyone called in with respect to this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There is no phone calls at this time.
Okay. We'll take the matter into committee then. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based upon my review of the owner's application, the site plans and building elevation, etc., my site visit, the owner's presentation together with the planning staff's report. It's my opinion that the application meets or passes all four tests of the Planning Act. Therefore, I put forth a motion that the application be approved, subject to the conditions that attached dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawing dated October 2023, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision. The building permit not being issued for the proposed construction.
Okay, is there a discussion on this recommendation? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some concerns with what is being proposed, both in terms of the intensity of site works on the site, also in terms of the process to get adequate information for us to render a decision here tonight. And I have some very significant concerns about the idea of projecting an underground garage forward within the lot. We've seen a number of these underground garages in some other areas, particularly on Pebble Ridge, where they projected into the rear yard and they've been incorporated into the hardscape. But this appears to be something very different to me. based upon those comments, I have some serious reservations about the intent of the bylaw. I think that this is driving between some provisions and with respect to garage area and RFA, and ending up with a building that's much larger than was intended, notwithstanding how RFA has traditionally been applied on a site. I think also the front yard setback is a line too close for me. So I also don't believe it meets the test for desirability. So I will not be supporting the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Any further discussion? Okay, the motion is to approve this application. All those for? All those against? Okay, the application has been denied.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
just need to interrupt you. So
Sorry, no, you're right. You're right. You know, sometimes it gets the best of me. The application has, the motion has failed because 3 of us have ruled against it. We will need another motion. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken a site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, and having evaluated the context of the neighborhood, and having heard some of the comments from both staff and the agent, I am not satisfied that the requested variances conform to the 4 tests of the Act. Finding that it is not within the intent of the bylaw, and it's not desirable for the appropriate development of the lands, and as such, I'll put forward a motion to refuse the application.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, all those in support of the denial? All those opposed? I'm assuming Mr. Dickey is opposed. Now your application has been denied. I'm sorry, Mr. Cocomello, you'll have to go back to the drawing boards and talk with town staff and come back with a more amenable proposal.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else having problems with the with our portal? It keeps kicking me out. Is there anyone else having that issue? No? Okay. All right. The next application on our agenda is CAV 163 2023 at 1430 Hickson Street. Again, it's CAV 163 of 2023 at 1430 Hickson Street. I have Mr. David Carothers as our agent.
Yes. Hi, Madam Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. My name is David Crothers of Crothers and Associates, 505 York Boulevard, Hamilton, Ontario. I'm here on behalf of the homeowner, Sanol Castellin, 1430 Hickson Street, Oakville, Ontario. Here on behalf of the owner to seek permission to construct a rear yard covered porch on a recently approved building permit for a custom home. The variance is in order to cover the uncovered patio portion. We're requesting a total lot coverage of 26.9%, where only 25% is allowed. The general intent of the overall lot coverage regulations is to ensure that a dwelling's overall scale and massing is appropriate. The home has been designed under the 25% to ensure an appropriately sized dwelling is constructed on the lot and to ensure that it's keeping with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. Our proposal to cover the porch will not result in the overmassing or overdeveloping the lot to the detriment of the community. Its only purpose, it will allow the owners to sit out back during peak sun hours or rainy days. It is not visible to the street, and it is only 4.92 from established grade height. Based on the above, it is my opinion that the proposed variance meets the four tests under section 45(1) of the Planning Act, and I open it up to any questions that the panel may have for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carruthers. Has anyone called in for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There is no phone call at this time.
Okay. Are there any questions of Mr. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time pronouncing your name. Will you pronounce it for me one more time?
Carruthers.
Carruthers. Okay.
Yes.
Thank
sorry.
you. I apologize.
That's okay.
It's just that, you know, my tongue gets twisted somehow, and I just don't want to do that again. Are there any questions of Mr. Carruthers at this time? Okay, I see none. If we're ready to take the matter into committee, I'm ready for a motion. Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, and having heard Mr. Carruthers' presentation, I'm satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the four tests of the Act, and accordingly, I'll put forward a motion of approval. That motion would be subject to two conditions, those being that the covered porch be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated September 26, 2023, and that the approval will expire 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction. I would note that there were no members of the public present with respect to this matter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you, have a good night.
Okay, have a good evening.
Application 165, CAV 165 of 2023 at 480 Scarsdale Crescent. Again, it's CAV 165 of 2023 at 480 Scarsdale Crescent. We have Shamil Qureshi as our agent on record. If anyone's interested in this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conference.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Qureshi. Can you please turn your camera on?
Hi, this is Shamil Qureshi. I am the agent. I'm speaking on the behalf of the homeowners of 480 Scarsdale, and I am speaking from Unit 224, 2275 Lakeshore Boulevard, West Toronto.
Okay, go ahead. Did you send in a presentation for the committee this evening?
Yes, there's this. I will refer to this while I just go through my write-up.
Okay, very well. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the variance we are here to discuss today is to permit the maximum residential floor area ratio for the detached dwelling to be 40.3% as opposed to the allowable 40%. This is an increase of a mere 0.3%, which is less than 0.5%, which I'm sure we all can agree is minor in nature. We have noted the report from planning staff, which highlights concerns with regards to the exterior envelope of the dwelling and how it relates to the character of the neighborhood. I have 2 points to make regarding that report. Firstly, the variance being requested is not actually related to the concerns highlighted in the report. The modest increase in the floor area ratio was triggered by adding a mudroom within the garage. So the variance has no impact on the exterior envelope of the home. In fact, a building permit has already been issued, which allows the dwelling with the external envelope as proposed to be built. So the question really is not whether the external envelope of the dwelling should be permitted to be built, because it already is as per the building permit which we have received, but rather whether we should be allowed to add the proposed mudroom within the garage, which is in fact what has triggered the variance. Secondly, even if we are to ignore the fact that the variance being requested is not actually related to the external envelope of the proposed dwelling, a quick Google search of the area will reveal that new developments with similar massing and character are springing up within the neighborhood. And if we could just go to the next slide. So these are just reference images of the neighborhood, and we can see that there are similar and newer developments with the same character and massing, which are coming up within the neighborhood. Next slide, please. Over there in the background, we can see the property 480 Scarsdale Crescent. Next slide. And next slide. So we can see then that the character of the neighborhood is itself in transition, and the proposed development would not be out of place within this evolving context. Lastly, I would just like to reiterate that this request is simply about being able to add a mudroom within the garage. That will be the consequence of the committee's decision today, whether we are able to or not able to add that mudroom, which is an important functional requirement for any home, and similarly for the property owners of 480 Scarsdale. This request is not about the external envelope of the dwelling, which is already permitted as per the approved building permit. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Ms. McKnight, I have a question. So the addition of the mudroom, it's being taken out from the garage. So once that happened, it triggered the additional RFA.
Yeah, the floor space index, but it's not on the exterior of the house. It is within the garage.
No, I understand that. So are you decreasing the size of your garage
Yes.
to account for the mudroom?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or items of clarification? I see none. Has anyone called in with respect to this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There are no phone calls at this time.
Okay, very well. Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Mr. Qureshi, in designing your house, I think in designing your house, did your client's house, did you look towards dealing with the infill design guidelines? I'm sorry, I forget the exact name of the document, the design guidelines for this area. In terms of the way the building transitions to adjacent properties, particularly considering the context where there is an old stock home immediately abutting the property.
It's not that I'm aware of. I'm one member of the team which was involved in the design process, so not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or items of clarification?
Madam Chair,
Go
do a follow up.
yes.
Sorry, I'm playing a little bit of computer. I'm having a bit of challenges with my computer this evening, so I'm struggling with my notes.
I'm in the same boat. I don't know what's happening. Anyways, go ahead.
Well,
go ahead, Mr.
in my
Hardcastle.
case, I just can't seem to find the notes that I took earlier on in the week. But this again would be for Mr. Qureshi. Have you, upon receiving these comments from staff, have you sought to understand how you could resolve and address the concerns of staff?
Yes, we were in communication with staff, but the way we see it is that the house is being built with the proposed, external envelope that is happening. So our request right now is simply about that mudroom, and we were not able to come eye to eye on that, but we did have communication with them and try to put that point across.
Thank you. I'll be honest. I'm struggling a little bit here. It's a relatively modest number, but at the end of the day, a variance is being requested, and so the totality of the building needs to be evaluated, whether it's the addition of the GFA for the mudroom or not, right? So I'm struggling a little bit here myself and looking for some guidance on that piece.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, Mr. Hardcastle. This wouldn't have been triggered at all if they were not requesting the additional square footage. They would have completed the house and it would have been, right?
Yeah, sort of. That's what our stance is, that essentially the decision that will be taken today, it'll just have, the impact will just be to allow or not allow the mudroom. The development is being built as it is. So
yes, but do you see how it is from our perspective, that even though development is progressing and has been approved for a building permit, once you trigger one of these variances, then we have to look at the application as a whole, and everything else then becomes fair game to question. That's really what it is.
I do understand, but the outcome will just happen that it will be there, but we just won't have that mudroom, which is really important to the clients, and it is an important function within the home. So we just request that you take that into consideration. That actual outcome of the decision is just going to end up deciding whether the mudroom is there or not.
And how, in terms of, I think I'm going to hold on to that question. Any other questions or items of clarification? Okay. Has anyone called in with that respect, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There are no phone calls at this time.
Okay. Very well. Let's start the discussion. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Madam Chair, this is a challenging one.
Yes.
This is a building that presents much larger, more massively than its number would indicate. It's a very tall, square building that doesn't really it doesn't work in architectural elements that would break down the size of the building. Even without the RFA variance, the building would still stand out in terms of its singular monolithic kind of size and shape. And I feel for Mr. Qureshi and his clients in terms of the what is driving the variance, but I can't get around that we need to evaluate this in its totality and what the impact on the street will be based upon the application before us. Accordingly, I can't see that this is desirable for the appropriate development of the land. I will put forward a motion to refuse the variance on those bases. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. Is there discussion on this recommendation? Yeah, I see none. All those in support of denying the application? All those opposed?
Madam
Okay,
Chair.
which way are you going, Miss Yu? Are you for or against the denial? I didn't see your hand go up either way.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really struggling because I'm trying to convince myself to understand on both sides. So I'm hesitating. Yeah, I would. Well, I struggle a little bit, so I would oppose to the denial at this time. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so
It's really difficult.
Yes. 2 for the denial, 1 opposed, and I will abstain. So the denial goes through. It's 2-1. I'm sorry, your application has been denied. If you want that mudroom, you're gonna have to take it somewhere else from the building. Not gonna be able to come back from the garage. Have a good evening.
It's better to have garage than mudroom. Ridiculous.
Good evening. Okay, so this one has been denied. Madam Secretary Treasurer, did you get the last one?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, very well. Application CAV 020 of 2023. Am I reading this right? Yes. CAV 020 of 2023 at 61 Pebble Ridge Place. And this was deferred from March the 8th of 2023. I will note we do have 4 letters of objection from a Ms. Zhu, Patricia Payne Sao, and VMAC Limited, owner of lot 16, and a Mr. Ihab Habib. We have 4 letters of objection as noted. We have Mr. Jim Pfeffer. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, good evening. So I am pleased to be here this evening presenting this proposal to you. We sent in a booklet of supporting material. Maybe if you could bring that up, it would be appreciated. So this is the 3rd application that we've brought before the committee in this subdivision. And as mentioned, this was deferred in March. We brought it back with a number of substantial changes. So in the booklet of supporting material that we've submitted, on the front page, you'll see the rendering of the front elevation of the house. And in that rendering, can that get brought up? You'll see a few things. The one thing I'd really like to point out is that in the front elevation, you will not see any garage doors in this house. And that's because we've got the garage off to the side of the house. Where the garage is, we've got a 6-meter wide driveway. It's narrower than what is allowed in this subdivision, and then an additional meter, so a 7-meter side yard setback on the north side. Because of that, we're asking for a reduced side yard setback on the south side of 3.4 meters, whereas 4.2 meters is required, so 0.8 less. However, in aggregate, we're providing 10.4 meters, so almost 25% more side yard than what you typically find in this subdivision. So we're still maintaining that sense of openness and spaciousness between houses, which is typical of this subdivision and what the bylaw intends. The other thing that I'd like to point out, if you could see the front elevation, which is also part of our submission as well as the booklet, is that the only reason for the depth variance and for the front yard setback variance is a covered front porch in front of the building. The front door is actually further back than the setback rules require. This is similar to what this committee approved at 53 Pebble Ridge Place, and there's no real impact. It's, as you'll see in the front elevation, you know, it's really in keeping with what the guidelines call for in terms of articulation, massing. Of course, we comply with the required height. If you take a look at the site plan, on the site plan, that red square that you see, that is the box that you can build a building in with. You see on the north side, it's on the right of the site plan, you can see that small 0.8 meters, we sit into the side yard. It's a very small percentage of the side yard, and it's still a very generous side yard for all of the things that side yards are required for: drainage, access, privacy. There is no window except one small bathroom window on that side of the house. So no privacy issue. On the ground floor, of course, there'll be a fence, there'll be landscape screening, so no privacy issues there. And then in the back of the house, we've got a terrace at the ground floor level. So that terrace has a basement underneath it. Without that basement, the lot coverage would be 21.5%. So significantly less than what the zoning bylaw asks for. That terrace would be built, of course, with retaining one way or the other. So there's no real impact, there's no contribution to massing. And because it's in the basement, it's similar to what this committee approved a couple of weeks ago, 15 15 Pebble Ridge Place. So there's no impact to that basement coverage. On the next page of my presentation booklet, you'll see, just like at 15 Pebble Ridge Place, we had the civil engineer for the subdivision analyze this lot. What he found is that there's less runoff from this property than what they designed for, and it follows the design intent of the drainage for the subdivision. What the civil engineer also told us was that at the back of this lot, there's a ponding area intended to collect the rainwater from significant rain events in the subdivision from the 3 neighboring lots. So there can't be any question about additional coverage on this lot having a negative impact on neighboring properties, because their runoff in an extreme rain event is intended to come to this property. On the next page of my presentation booklet, you'll see that I put the property to the south and this property side by side. You can see the two properties compared. This image is also in the staff report if you want to look for it there. And what you'll see is a really generous spacing between the two houses, no concern about privacy, you know, and a really sort of sense of openness between the two properties. Finally, if you take a look at your prior approvals in this subdivision, this house is actually smaller in GFA than 8 out of the 9 prior approvals in this subdivision. So that FSI, one of the variances we're seeking, our area is actually less than the house. And if you'll also take a look at the front elevation we're proposing, it's narrower than everything else that this committee has approved because of that additional side yard setback we're proposing, where our aggregate of the side yard setbacks is considerably greater than what you'll usually find. We also, the last time we were here, had 8 letters of support from Shorewood Place. Of course, with this being a reduced request, all of those 8 letters of support we got from people on Shorewood, you know, still absolutely applicable here. It's unfortunate that material I sent in, for whatever reason, isn't in the hands of the committee, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or items of clarification from Mr. Pfeffer at this time?
Madam Chair,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
thank you. To the agent, tell me again about I missed what you said about the neighbors on Shorewood. Did you say
Yeah,
there?
yeah, so we did send in a booklet more than 3 weeks ago, so I don't know why it's there. If you had it, you'd see we put stars on so sort of on the western side of Shorewood Place, we've got letters of support from 6 neighbors. And then across the street on Shorewood, we've got 2 more. So that's 32, 38, 46, 53, 54, 70, 77, and 78 Shorewood Place, all submitted letters of support. Here's that front elevation that I had talked about. You can see lots of articulation, generous spacing on both sides. That front porch, that's our length and front yard setback variance. Yeah, you know, if you scrolled through this, I'd appreciate it just so you can see some of what I talked about. The site plan you've seen, that red box, the as-right envelope, our porch, and to a certain extent, our southern side sticks past that. Of course, on the south, because we're closer on the south side, there's no shading impact of this either, because the sun is in the south, so we're not shading in any additional way that lot to the south. On the next page, you'll see this is the letter from the engineer. Okay, I see you waving me off, Mr. Dickey. So
Yeah, I had a question about Sherwood.
okay, we got 8 letters of
you
support,
had-
and you'll see those. And if you go to page 5, I think you'll see a star on each of those properties that submitted us a letter of support. One more page. There we go. There's a orange star on every house that submitted a letter of support for this application.
When did they submit these?
That was prior to the hearing in March.
You didn't get support from the neighbor directly behind.
We did not, that's correct. But we're not.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's it.
Can staff zoom out again, please? Thank you. Are there any questions or other items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called with respect to this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do have, and I'm promoting now, Miss Patricia Pink.
Okay.
Sure.
Sorry.
Hello, can you see me?
Hi. No, we cannot. You need to turn your camera on.
Oh,
Yes.
I think I turned my camera on. Okay,
There you go.
thank you. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Patricia from Patricia Realty team. Thank you for providing an opportunity to do the presentation tonight. So I'm the owner of 53 Pebble-Ridge Place. I just want to present my concern about the variance 2, which to permit a maximum southern interior side yard of 3.4 meters. I understood back in March, Mr. Tony, lot 61 Pebble-Ridge, they asked the variance for the side yard setback on the other side, which is north side, from 7 meter to 6 meter, because they want to build a side yard garage, which is cool function. But I mean, they got objected by that neighbor on the north side, so they did not get approval that side back. So now they changed their variance. They wanted to shift to my side, which is south side, to shift the entire house 2.6 feet to my side because that side yard garage. I mean, they should have, yeah, it's a nice, cool idea, but it shouldn't have compromising my privacy and the natural light from my lot. As you can see from the presentation slide 1, it's because apart from side yard setback reduction, they also asked to increase the dwelling depth to 21.9 meter. So because of this closeness to the property line and the layout of the 3-story type the backyard and workouts, because we are like we're walkout lot. So they created a very massive 3-story structure at back of 61 Pebble-Ridge. It's gonna cast a significant shadow in the afternoon as the sun sets directly on the line of 61 dwelling and my backyard. So this is particularly noticeable at the sunset directly along the line. And this, because the design, the grading and the landscape at the rear of my home. So we carefully designed with a gradually lower effect, preventing the imposing appearance of a 3-story structure. But on the contrary, lot 61 Pebble-Ridge designs seems to allow the grid to slope towards the rear more suddenly, so resulting in a visually overwhelming 3-story look. So from the picture, you can see my backyard, because it's a 3-story, so my backyard is lower, and the shadow will be created, and then the privacy will be invaded if that massive house is on the right side. The red brick house is 61 Pebble-Ridge, so they're gonna like very easily, created, the invaded privacy of my yard. So if you can go to next page, please. You can see from their like east elevation, which is close to my lot, my home, they have a lot of big windows. As I circled in the red circle. So that window it's gonna face directly at my backyard. So from the arrow, it can be easily observed that from all angles, because they have an extension of the backyard as well. So they had a huge terrace, and on top of the terrace, there's a 1-story home also stick out from the backyard. So look like a lot of angle can, just invade the privacy of my home and my backyard. We had originally, the setback divided by subdivision developer. So I really don't have, I'm really concerned, and I'm not comfortable to have their entire house to shift over 2.6 feet to my house. It's not acceptable. I mean, they can do nice idea for their house, like a side yard garage, but they cannot do it compromising other people's privacy and the enjoyment of the property. They didn't do on the other north side back in March, but they did now. They try to do on the southern side. So if you go to next page, please. So you can see the slope from my side close to their side. So we really, because we did a gradually story walkout basement, but they did a very aggressive three-story basement. So we suggest 61 Pebble-Ridge surveyor take a look at our side grading plan to work out a better outcome with the shared sideboards to avoid any expensive retaining walls. This is just my suggestion. So overall, there was only one variance approved with the side yard setback reduction is because of small garden shade. That was lot 11. It was approved November 15th, I guess. So overall, none of the variants applied in this neighborhood for approval permit a side yard reduction, causing the entire home to be shifted closer to a neighbor. If this variance is approved, it opens the door for others to request a similar or even more aggressive setbacks. So consequently, all homes will end up appearing extremely crowded, compromising the spacious ambience which this neighborhood originally stood for. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patricia. Are there any questions or items of clarification at this time? Mr. Dickey, go ahead.
This maybe goes back to the owner's agent. I thought he had said that there was only a small bathroom window on the south side, but now the neighbor has pointed out and shown us the elevations on the south side. There's all kinds of windows on the south side. Am I reading something wrong here?
No, you're not. I said on the second floor, there is one window, which is a bathroom window. And, there could be a lot more windows on the second floor. But on the second floor, there's one window. And of course, windows on the second floor of a house are kind of an as of right item. And whether it's 80 centimeters closer or further away, there's no greater impact to the privacy. There's also the window to the stairwell there. So someone might be there at the landing. And then there's windows on the ground floor. And as I think the Patricia showed in her rendering, there's going to be a fence, there's going to be privacy planting along that property line, and there's no sort of view, there is going to be no view into the property from the ground floor. And, the windows would be there one way or the other, whether this house was 80 centimeters closer or further away.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I just want to stay in record because Mr. Jim Pfeffer never sent any letter of support to us. And also, secondly, this was not presentation sent to the Committee of Adjustment for tonight. The material that you see was sent to you as a form as a comments because he was insisting to provide you the additional material. The presentation never received for tonight. However, I was providing now to you to see the comments actually that you received from Mr. Jeff Puffer on Friday prior to the meeting. I just want to stay in the records that I never received any letters of support. If any letters of support was received for the first submission, we do not consider as something for the second submission. I just want to stay in record for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary Treasurer. Ms. Yu, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, further to Ms. Chasha's words, I'm wondering, since the agent mentioned that they received the supportive letters from the neighbors, I want to find out if the owners of those residents who provided supportive letters, did they review the same version of the drawings like those residents who provide the objection letters?
Yeah.
Those letters of support were sent in for the prior application, which was by and large kind of for a larger application than this one. We didn't think it necessary to go back to everyone a second time. So
okay.
They were
so then we can
prior
assume that does that answer your question, Ms. Yu? They did not see it. This was from the beginning, and as the Secretary Treasurer just mentioned, we don't recognize letters of support for a prior application.
The owner has family on Shorewood Place, and he's in regular contact with a lot of these people. So anyway.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pfeffer. Any further items of clarification?
Madam Chair, in reality, we have 4 neighbors this time object this variance.
Yes, we have those on record. Thank you, Ms. Patricia. We do. We have them on record. And we did receive them. And I did actually mention them on record in the beginning. Any other questions of the from the committee members? And has anyone else called with respect to this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There are no other phone calls.
Very well. We'll take the matter into committee
Can
then.
I
Let's start the
speak
discussion.
to, can I speak to what Patricia has had to say? I thought that was, I get a.
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Pfeffer. I thought you did. But no, go ahead. You do have time to comment
Yeah.
on Ms. Patricia's concern.
So actually, you know, if you could actually bring up what her supporting
As well
material-
as the 4 letters of objection.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've received those.
I saw, I think, 3 letters of objection, and I think one wasn't addressed, so I wasn't sure whom it was from. So there was one on Shorewood, there was Patricia's letter, there was,
One is from lot 3.
oh yeah, yeah, I saw
Yeah,
both
lot
of those
3.
lots. So 2 other people who have been, 2 other
Lot
people on
16,
Pebble
lot
Ridge,
3.
and someone on Shorewood. So
Yeah, 3 on Pebble Ridge.
if you could bring up, you know, Patricia.
Ms. Patricia, can you mute yourself for now, please?
Yeah, so if you bring up her booklet of material, I'll kind of speak to that. I mean, there's a couple of things she said which are kind of wrong. At the prior hearing, there was no one else objecting to the side yard setback we were looking for adjacent to the driveway. Staff said, if you have a driveway facing a side property line, it's supposed to be a 7-meter setback. We didn't provide that. So it was staff that raised that concern. Now we've moved it so we have 7 meters in front of the garage. We are reducing this setback. And this time, staff is in support. Staff has submitted a report, and they don't have objections to anything that we're proposing. Patricia mentioned that there was a variance of 2.2 meters given to the shed on 15 Pebble Ridge. That isn't true. The side yard setback there was to a portion of the building that was underground. So the whole thing about aggregate side yard setbacks, it's something that you see in the Oakville zoning bylaw. There are numerous zones where, say, 1.2 meters is required on one side, 2.5 on the other, to provide an aggregate sense of spaciousness. It's a commonly used planning practice. And in Mississauga, for example, there's zones like this one where 20% of the lot frontage is required to be side yard setback, but there's a number that you can't get below 1.8 meters just on one side. So that aggregate side yard setback, it's a principle recognized in Oakville. It's a commonly used planning principle. If you go back to like the first booklet here, I was surprised because Patricia was talking about the massive 3-story rear yard. So just to be clear, that's her house that this committee approved on the left. And this is the house that we're proposing on the right. Her house to the south of ours got a 0.5 meter height variance at the committee. And it's got that really steep roof. So her house to the south, height setback, height variance, really steep roof is going to be casting shadows to the north on our property with this much more gently sloping roof. And as you can see, vis-a-vis privacy. So we have the 1 second floor window. Yes, we have a stairwell window, but we don't have any rear yard, like significant rear yard amenity space, no activity. Most of the house is sort of the rear yard activity is all on the other side of the lot, away from her lot. Privacy, like take a look at that thing on the bottom. You can see there between these 2 properties, that's 7.6 meters between the 2 houses. It's really a lot of space. Put a fence there, plant some trees, and of course, we'll be willing to work to Patricia, to whom the owner sent an email on July 5th and a follow-up email saying, this is what we're proposing. Do you have any other concerns? She said, I want to run it by my architect. She never got back to us, ever. The owner reached out multiple times to Patricia, starting in June, about what we were proposing, and we never heard back. So until we saw the letter of objection submitted to the committee, and she sent us an email, I think, on the 20th, like a couple of days ago. So we reached out early to try and resolve this concern, but honestly, I don't think there's any impact to this variance, and staff also agrees that this is in keeping. So yeah, I mean, I think that's, what I'd like to say. And I'm really happy to take any other additional questions. Oh, I'd also say we did send in our booklet of supporting material like 3 weeks ago, and that's the one that we've been referring to. So
That's the thing, Mr. Pfeffer. I can't remember if we said that to you the last time you were here. You have to submit your materials for each application, regardless of whether it is a deferral or not. We don't hold on to your materials from 3 weeks ago. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, 3 weeks ago was for this application. I sent in that booklet. So
And it was provided, sorry, to Madam Chair, and it was provided from through the comments that you received on Friday. That booklet was provided with comments.
Wow.
Yeah, I see it in the comments. I'm scrolling through it right now. I'm not understanding what the dispute is then.
Neither am I. So.
Okay. All right. No, Ms. Patricia, we have heard you. You've had your time. It's not going to be a back and forth. Mr. Pfeffer has had his chance to respond to your concerns. You are heard, I assure you. But we need to move on. Who else has called in with a request to speak to the committee, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There is no phone calls.
Okay. Are there any questions from the committee members before we take the matter into committee? Okay, I see none. Matter is taken into committee. We'll take a motion whenever you're ready. I'll give you a couple of, oh, Ms. McKnight, you had your hand up. I apologize. Please wave,
no
because I can't see everybody sometimes, and that little tiny hand is
I understand.
What can I say? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just through you, Madam Chair, I would like to note that, as can be seen in the staff report, Development Engineering had some comments on the application at hand. So as such, if the committee were to approve of this application, we would request that the committee include additional conditions, as unfortunately this application would not be eligible for the Development Engineering site plan review process. Unfortunately, we didn't have these conditions finalized in time to include them in the initial staff report, but if the committee would like to support the application, we would request that the applicant is to provide a lot grading, drainage, and landscape plan to be completed by a P-Eng or OLS to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that the applicant is to provide a drainage letter confirming that the proposed grading matches that of the subdivision, and that the drainage catchment proposed match or are an improvement to the subdivision design to the satisfaction of the Director of Transportation and Engineering. So if the committee would like to proceed with approval of this application, we would request that those additional conditions be included.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. McKnight. Are there any questions of Ms. McKnight with respect to this condition from the committee members? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, did you get all of that?
Yes, I did, Madam Chair.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. McKnight. We'll go back to the committee, and I'll give them a couple of minutes before we take a motion. Okay. You want to start the ball rolling? Heavy is the hat. Or is it heavy is the head that wears it? Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, having heard the comments from both Mr. Pfeffer as well as having reviewed the comments from residents, the objections. I find the variances to conform to the 4 tests of the Act. I'll put forward a motion of approval, subject to the 4 conditions that have been identified by staff. You know, I would note that the development that is being proposed here is very consistent with the other applications we've seen in the area, including the abutting properties. I think that the issues of overlook and privacy are well and truly reasonably addressed by the individual developers through their own construction practices and the implementation of landscaping that I'm sure will be elaborate on both properties. I don't think there's any need for the committee to get involved in anything around that. So that's my motion.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Let's have a discussion. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Dickey, you have something to say.
I would be voting to deny this due to the side yard setback and the neighbor's complaint on that particular side. The fact that there's 5 variances generally indicates to me that's not minor in nature. The mass and scale of the structure from the rear is substantial, and the lot coverage is substantially above what the zoning bylaw allows. But for that reason, I would vote against approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dickey. Go ahead, Ms. Yu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would tend to support Ms. Dickey's motion because based on the information that I have heard at this that meeting, it looks like I'm not sure if the neighbors who submit the support letters, they review the same drawings as the neighbors who objected this proposal. So I'm really hesitating. I know we have approved a few similar applications within this subdivision, but unfortunately, without the adequate information regarding the letters from the neighbors, I won't be able to support this proposal at this time.
Okay, thank you for that discussion. So the proposed, the motion is to support this application. All those in support? All those opposed? Okay, and I will abstain. The motion has the motion to approve this application has failed. So now we need another motion. Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
As mentioned earlier in my comments, I would like to put forth a motion to deny this application.
Very well. All those in support of the denial? All those opposed? And the chair abstains. The application has been denied. Thank you and have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Application CAV 066 of 2023, deferred from May the 17th of 2023 at 1325 Avon Crescent. Again, that's application CAV 066 of 2023 at 1325 Avon Crescent. I have Mr. John Perks here as the agent. If Mr. Perks is in attendance, please raise your hand and the Secretary Treasurer will invite you in to speak.
Yes, hi. Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Perks. Do you have a presentation that you've submitted to staff?
I have a verbal presentation that I can make. I did send some pictures in, but they might not have, I'm not sure if you can display those when I prompt you. I emailed them in.
Very well. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair and committee members for allowing me to speak. I will keep my presentation brief, given staff are in full support of the minor variance request. Earlier this year, we had applied for 3 minor variances for this property. Town staff was not supportive of the requested variances, and thus at the May 17th Committee of Adjustment meeting, we requested and the committee approved a deferral so we could work with town staff to develop a proposal that was acceptable to the town. Consequently, over the past months, we have worked with the owner and the architect, and also consulted and worked with town staff. As a result, we altered the proposal to attempt to reduce the variances to as great an extent as possible. As you will have seen in the report, we eliminated 2 of the 3 original minor variances. We also significantly reduced the magnitude of the 3rd variance, being the residential floor area ratio. And that went from just over 59% in the May application to 45.5% in the current application, which brings it to a 4.5% exceedance to the maximum ratio. In terms of the appearance of the proposed house from external views, the setbacks to the proposed house all exceed the minimum setback. The lot coverage is below that allowed, and sufficient parking is being provided on site within the zoning requirements. We would also note that the massing of the proposed house would not change significantly from an off-site vantage point if indeed the residential floor area ratio were reduced. Regardless, we worked also to alter the front facade to include more articulations, as you will have seen in the committee report. Perhaps you can just scroll down a couple of pages. Is this? Oh, it's not the report. That's okay. You can see in the top right that the proposed house, the former house had less articulations. Thanks for that. Finally, on review of the neighborhood, and did you get my pictures? Or perhaps, I don't know if you can show those. I emailed them in. It'd be great if you could, but if not, I understand. I'll continue if you're trying to pull them up. On review of the neighborhood, we observed that larger, more significant homes have and are being constructed, including to the immediate east of 1325 Avon, as well as 2 doors to the west. There's another newer house, and our proposal would be very in keeping with those houses and others that are being revitalized in the neighborhood. Suffice it to say, it's evident the area is redeveloping and revitalizing, and we believe the proposed redevelopment of 1325 Avon fits into this neighborhood. In conclusion, we believe the proposed redevelopment will be in character and that the minor variance is acceptable. As the staff report is in full, as the staff report is in full support of the requested minor variance, I will stop there and welcome any questions. I also note that the property owner is also in the Zoom meeting and can field any questions that the committee may have for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Perks. Are there any questions or items of clarification? Mr. Dickey, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hesitate to ask this question. It isn't really an issue here, but I am curious. There's a comment from the Canadian National Railway that they want an easement for operational noise emissions. I've never heard of that before, and I'm just wondering if you can educate me at all on that matter.
Anybody else wants to jump in, or I can try? I'm also a noise consultant. The railways are very difficult to deal with, and
Yes.
they're very they protect their rights very stringently. So I imagine that easement would be for noise complaints, like if you know, it's to advise that there's a railway in vicinity, and that if you know, to put something on title, probably with the easement or whatever they're requesting, to warn the property owners that a railway is in the vicinity.
I was just surprised that they used the word easement as opposed to, like you're saying, a notice.
I know.
Of purchaser. Oh, okay. Just
That,
something
yeah, I
I
am
never.
too.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
not sure if the city, like, I'm not sure if the city would accept that from the railway, or the town, sorry, would accept that from the railway, or how the town would respond to that.
You wouldn't need to adhere to that if you were just going for a building permit, not under the Planning Act. Is that my correct understanding?
I hope somebody with more education than me might help.
Mr. Muzaev, maybe you can jump in, our planner on record.
Sure.
Through you, Madam Chair. So planning comments, as planning department, only provide comments on based on the planning concerns. The town would not alter the condition imposed by the railway. I hope that answers your question.
It's a very politically correct answer.
Okay, thank you. I was just surprised by that, what CN is saying and using the word easement and other things. It was just a learning thing for me today. So thank you for your input.
I guess you'll cross that railway when you get to it, right?
I'm never surprised anymore what the railways might say.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mr. Dickey. Anyone else have any questions or concerns or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Let's take a motion. Has anyone called? Sorry, I keep losing sight of my order. Has anyone called in for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There are no phone calls at this time.
Very well, thank you. Okay, now we can take a motion. Go ahead, Miss Yu. Thank you. Put me out of my misery.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was so eager to make the motion. So I have raised my hand.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Please do.
Yeah, having reviewed the application materials, completed the site visit and heard the presentation from the agent. Sorry, my brain is not working. It's almost 9 p.m. So based on the information provided by the and also sorry, let me start from the beginning. What's wrong?
Go ahead.
Having reviewed the entire application package, including the staff reports and the application materials, and having reviewed, having heard the presentation done by the agent, I'd like to move. I recognize this proposal meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. As such, I'd like to move a motion forward to approve this proposal, subject to conditions. One, the detached dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated November 3rd, 2023, and the elevation drawings dated October 31st, 2023. And condition number 2, the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hu. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, application CAV 158 of 2023, and this one was deferred from October the 18th at Iron Oak Way. I don't have a number here, and my computer has shut down. Can anyone help me? Good evening, Mr. Ramsey.
Madam Chair, were you looking for assistance in the number, the file number?
No, I have the file number. I just don't have the number on Iron Oak Way.
It's not on the application.
Okay, very well. So it's not just me. Go ahead, Mr. Ramsey. You're muted again.
There we go. I can confirm that the address is 1949 Iron Oak Way. Hope that's the toughest question I have tonight.
Yeah, let's see. Go ahead, sir.
I'll be quite brief. This is a proposal under Section 45(2)(b) of the Planning Act to permit a use that is defined in general terms, rather than an application under 45(1) for a minor variance. The application, or a similar application, was presented to the committee in 2019. This is to permit Dog Guides of Canada to move from their cramped facilities at Kerr Street and Rebecca to a new facility. The facility is intended to be used for the training of guide dogs, as well as the matching of dog guides to their clients, and the training of clients to get used to to working with guide dogs. It's a fairly unique facility, and typically these types of facilities are not specifically defined in the zoning bylaw. In 2019, we got the property description wrong. We got, I think, probably 90% of the property was identified as being subject to the variance and not the full extent of the property. So even though the variance was approved in 2019, we have to come back now to get the proper description of the property. It's taken some time because we had some advice from staff which said because in 2019 we didn't have the detailed description or a detailed design of the building. So we've been working on that, and through the advice of staff, we put off applying for the updated variance to ensure that the design of the building didn't cause or create the need for new variances. And I can say that the site plan process is almost complete, and there has been no additional need for variances. And I can also confirm that I read the staff report, and I agree with the staff report and the conditions that staff have included in their recommendation to approve the application. I'll be happy to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. Any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Ramsey at this time? Has anyone called with respect to this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There are no phone calls at this time.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based upon my review of the owner's application, the site plans, building elevations, etc., my site visit, together with the presentation by the owner's agent and the planning staff's report, it is my opinion that this application conforms to the tests under the Planning Act, and therefore I put forward a motion to approve this application, subject to two conditions. Development be constructed, that the development be constructed in general according to the final approved site plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of decision. The building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Dickey. Is there discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
We have minutes from November the 15th to confirm. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. And motion to adjourn. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. We are adjourned at 8:43. Madam Secretary.